ETV English Special Programs. Thank you for joining us. I am Kiran Abbaina. The role of a woman cannot be underestimated. In fact, it is something to laud and celebrate. And that is exactly what this day is for. March 8th, or International Women's Day, a day devoted to celebrating the achievements of women and fighting for gender equality. The fight for which goes back to the mid-1800s, or the suffragette movement, which fought for the women's right to vote. But ever since then, it has taken on various dimensions. And in today's special edition, we will be looking into International Women's Day as well as other pressing issues such as why we need to advocate for gender equality and what we can do to go towards a more gender equal world and a more gender equal Ethiopia in particular. I'm joined today by representatives from the Association of Women in Boldness, or AWiB, Bethlehem Nagash, who's a board member of AWiB and a gender equality advocate, as well as Lydia Johannes, who is a membership relations manager at AWiB. Do stay with us. Thank you both so much for availing yourself today.
Thank you for inviting us.
All right, so International Women's Day is considered a focal point in women's rights movements this day, and it brings attention to the different issues that women are faced with, the gender-based violence, the reproductive rights, for example, gender equality in terms of wage payments, etc. But what I want to look at now is throughout history, it's considered that they were fighting some sort of injustice in something that was explicit, the ban from voting, the ban from going to school. But in this day and age where it seems like the rights for women have been given, what is the importance of celebrating International Women's Day? And I'd like to start with you, Bethlehem.
Thank you, Kida. As you've mentioned, historically, women have been marginalized, have been, deterred from going to schools, from, taking certain positions, even including taking, having a bank account back in the US, back in the days, until, 40, 50 years ago, and also voting, be it as a candidate, also as voters as well. But, as it's acknowledged in Ethiopian constitution as well, in Ethiopian culture and context, women are still lagging far behind, when it comes to equality, when it comes to enjoying equal rights, economic, financial, employment, etc. So we need the day to, to advocate for equality and also to speak about, women's rights and, to celebrate their achievements as well, not only about, asking for rights, but they have come a long way, as you have said. So it's also about celebrating, what women have achieved. And for this year, for instance, we are celebrating women innovators, women who have, contributed to the technological advances.
All right, Lydia, would you please add on that?
International Women's Day. It's very important to celebrate because only that day is dedicated to women. Every day is Women's Day, but raising topics like this, it puts to light things that we oversee sometimes. So always raising the topic and discussing it and having a dialogue around it, it brings to light a lot of issues that we may ignore, and we may find solutions out of these conversations, out of these discussions. So it's very important to always raise it and discuss it and see the progress we've made and the progress we should look forward to.
So you've said some things about not only this day should be dedicated towards women and towards asking for rights, although that's not the only thing it's resorted for. And now I'm going to go into the importance of advocating for women's rights today, where, like I said earlier, it seems that women have been given what they deserve, maybe in that context. But we have far more reaching consequences when it comes to the patriarchal system that has come throughout history. So it's manifested not only in official settings, not only in schools or in professional settings, but in everyday life of society. So we don't see that. We don't see the everyday violence that women in different areas of the world have to face. In fact, the UN resolution designating the International Day for the Elimination of Violence Against Women says that violence against women is a manifestation of historically unequal power relations between men and women. And so we're seeing that now being manifested. And actually, before I say much on that, I'd like to see your point of view and why it's still important to advocate for women's rights or for women's equality in today's or in 21st century setting.
For instance, if we are taking this year's theme again, it's about using innovation and technology for gender equality. When it comes to STEM, ICT, and IT, UNESCO's participation of women is still less globally, around 22% only from the those in STEM and technologies are women. And in Africa, though that's a bit better, it's around 29%, but still women are lagging far behind. And when it comes to jobs in the future and also in the 21st century, as you have mentioned, most of the jobs are focused on STEM and IT. That also predicted to grow even up to 70% of the jobs in the upcoming will be more digital and also more technology focused. So in that case, women are excluded from that. And when it comes to employment, even in Ethiopian case, in African global, women are still less getting a chance to be in gainful employment. And also, as you have mentioned, most of them are in the care economy and in non-formal economy, which is also credited less, which even doesn't. It's a huge contribution to the economy and to the society, but it's never recognized because unless care work is recognized, women's work is also not recognized. So that's also the issue. If you take it in education, for instance, gender parity in education in Ethiopia, only I think 2 regions are have fulfilled that one, Harare and Addis Ababa or something. So still, in primary school enrollment, it's much better. It's increasing. But when it comes to tertiary and also high school, women are, girls are, dropping out of school. They are not getting educated. And, if you are not educated, you only, get to be in the, small wage industries, if that's also even possible, or, just in the home care. So it's important, even if we have come a long way, as we have said, but it's still, a lot, to cover. I think we have come a long way, but still we need to do more to bring, that 50-50 ideal situation for gender, parity and equality.
What I'd like to add is that the power balance between the men and the women is. We haven't achieved it. Obviously, we see it in many rooms that important decisions are made. We don't see women in there. So this is why we should always advocate and push to put women there. And usually these imbalances is a result of the narratives embedded in our history, right? In our culture. It's in subtle ways it has created this, it's manifesting as we see it. So we need to keep advocating for this until we get the power balance. And this power imbalance not only affects women, it affects society. When a woman is abused or when a woman is discriminated in any way and feels suffering, the whole society feels suffering too.
Both of you actually raised very important points. You talked about finally having this 50-50 representation, and you said something about the society would be at a disadvantage if a woman is, quite frankly speaking. So we've seen the woes of what a gender unequal world looks like. We've seen the exclusion of women from the political arena and what effect that it has had. But if we're going towards, or if we're fighting towards an equal world, then what is the manifestation or what is the description of a gender equal world? What would that look like? Either of you can take that up.
I would imagine a gender not only equality in equity. I like equity better because equality kind of represents similarity, but we're different, but our differences is complementary. So a gender equal world would be a world with social order in it. So all the chaoses we are seeing in different ways in our world today, in our communities, they would kind of find balance and somehow innate peace if there's gender equality in many different ways.
So, as you know, there is no country in the world that have achieved, gender equality, and they are saying, it may take, longer time to achieve that, even hundreds of years. But for me, a gender equal world would be like where women are, equally represented in all aspects of life, including the politics, the economy, the businesses, etc. So they won't be, gender-based roles when it comes to, how work. Like every work will be women's work, and also child rearing, etc. Reproductive roles won't also be limited to women. Everybody, that also will be everybody's work.
All right, interesting. So Lydia, you said something about if there's a gender equal world, it would innate peace, and different descriptions of that. So I want you to keep that in mind and look at the situation that we have in Ethiopia. And will you please tell me your opinion of the situation in regards to women's rights in Ethiopia in the context of the equal gender world that you just described for me?
Okay, in Ethiopia, I think we've come a long way when it comes to opportunities, when it comes to education at least, but what we've lagged, I believe, is in our culture. So the cultural little things that we do, we say, the words we say to our children since early childhood, it's embedded in us. And we're embedding it onto the next generation, and it came from the generations before. So this kind of, the words, the violences, everything, it's leaving trauma on us, on our minds and hearts. So it's kind of heavy on us. So we need a space to talk about those and release those so that we can heal and build the nation alongside with the men. We need the men too. We can't do this alone.
All right, so you said we've come, Lydia has mentioned that we've come a long way, and I agree it's in regards to, especially beginning from the 21st century, much improvement has been made in the education sector in particular to bring both genders to equal access or more or less fair access to education with all its negative sides. But I want to ask you, Bethalhem, what are the areas that we need to work on? Because earlier you said something about the work arena is changing now. 70% of the jobs will be in the tech sector, and Ethiopia as a country in general is a bit far behind in the technology sector, although it's coming up now. So we can imagine the gap that there would be for women and girls in there. So why don't you expound on that for me?
Okay, yeah. These jobs mainly, even globally, not only to Ethiopia, the tech, the STEM, etc., only, for mostly open for boys, because, some of them may, require spending a lot of time doing research, a lot of time, focusing on, that. But, as we have, seen in our society, we don't only look at, the city settings or, even in the cities, smaller cities, regions, for instance, girls are also expected to help at, at the house because of the patriarchal situation that you have mentioned, also because of the status our society is giving to the girls and women. Boys, if they have time, they can do, gaming, they can do, lots of things that expose them to this kind of, technologies, and also give them time to explore, lots of options. But for the girls, even if they are going to school, as I've mentioned, when, it comes to when they're getting older, high school, university, etc., even in, mostly in high school, they are also supposed to help at home. And also, if there are, things to do outside, such as, staying at the library, spending more time on, their education, mostly that's not, a reality for them because of, the outlook. And also the society generally may tend to think that, women she will be, especially if, if it's in the regions, she will be married, she will be going to someone, so why do I need to invest on her, etc. I think that's also, a lot of things that, hold them, girls, including, the expectation that they have to, help in the house. So that may, have, impacted, an impact. And also even the attitude that says that, such kind of education are mostly women are, should be, the nurses, we have seen that. So although that changed, that's changing slowly, but, women are more nurses than, the doctors, or, more even in engineering, etc. There are there, but, generally they give, the setting, the work, the construction, etc. It's mostly for men. I don't know about the policies, the details. Maybe that's also not crafted, as per the differential. She said we are different. So when we ask about gender equality, we mostly are asking, to consider that differential needs of women. For instance, in the work settings, they may need, the daycare. They have house responsibilities, child care responsibilities. So we became more, catering to that need as well. When it comes, what makes them different from men as well.
Yeah, it's those subtle notions that are embedded in society about the caring nature of a woman that kind of, gives us this corner that we're supposed to stay in. So all of this has been we've been given a glass ceiling even with these opportunities. We've not been able to break out of that because of this idea that you've mentioned that's embedded in societies. Now, moving on, actually, the theme for this year is Embrace Equity. And so equity is a bit different from equality, in which equality looks at being given equal opportunities to go to school, to go to work. Meanwhile, equity sort of has this idea where not only giving opportunities, but making sure that a woman can actually benefit from those opportunities. So being given an equal opportunity to go to school doesn't necessarily mean the girl can prosper in that area, in that setting. So I want to ask you now, what can we do towards going to a not only gender equality, but having an equity setting for Ethiopia? What are some of the steps that we can take? Let me go to Lydia for now.
So, to achieve equity is, so the marginalized group, in this case women, need a safe space where they can discuss these disadvantages, discriminations, violences, or anything, which is what we do here at AWiB too. So it's not the lack of opportunities as I see it, but even from the women's side, it's there's the reservation from taking those opportunities, because as I told you, from early childhood, we've been told some things, and some standards have been set. So through time, we tend to accept them and try to live up to only those standards and not go above those or take another path that might be suitable for each individual woman. So and there are also double standards for men and women, boys and girls. So this doesn't only affect women, it also affects men too. So this whole thing is very important to raise, because our whole society's livelihood depends on this. It's affecting the men and the women. So how to achieve it? Giving them space to express themselves, listening, hearing our voices.
So Bethlehem, one thing about this movement towards gender equality, or even the celebration of International Women's Day, it's been taken, the origin has been denoted as something that has come from Europe or North America, and that takes on a fight of its own. In fact, the shared suffrage of women was the same perhaps in the past, but when we bring it to the African context, there's always a different hint to it. And I bring this in this context because I want you to expound on, the fight towards a gender equity, or having an equity for the opportunities for women in Africa, and how different it is from the Western fight, we could call it.
Yes, that's an important question. You're right. our situations are different, even within the African context, even within the Ethiopian culture. Even, you know, in Addis Ababa, you know, outside Addis Ababa regions, the rural areas, our issues might be, even though, you know, we are all one in, you know, having disadvantaged group, you know, being vulnerable, being, you know, left out in many situations. But as you have mentioned, maybe in the Western world, they have, you know, including the economic independence and the economic stability, or, you know, at least security to have, you know, food on the table and etc. But for the women, it's like a double struggle in, you know, the African context and others as well. Yeah, the, you know, the least developed countries, as you have mentioned, you know, the more resources are constrained, it's you know, the women who are suffering, even if, you know, there is conflict, even when there is, you know, drought, even there is when there is famine, hunger, etc. You know, because, you know, whenever the resources is limited, there is a fight for the resource. And, you know, as Lydia have mentioned, you know, the way we grow up, the way we know, we have been always told to take care of others, not ourselves, to put others first. So whenever there is, you know, limited resource, we only give to our children, to our, you know, the heads of houses, whatever, you know, that means. So yeah, mostly they have, you know, been affected. But for the issues, as you have mentioned, I totally understand, you know, there were some groups, you know, if I give you an example, there were some groups who fight for, you know, increase in maternity leave in Ethiopia, like both for the government and the private sector. For the government, it has been, you know, extended to 4 months now, I think. So they were advocating that, you know, to promote, you know, exclusive breastfeeding, etc. It has to be, you know, 6 months. So I do gender advocacy and also online activism, digital activism as well. So they were asking me to, you know, to be their voice, and to, so I've told them, you know, I don't agree with that, because our economy cannot, you know, carry that. We are, you know, yes. So they will stop hiring women if you do, you know, this 6 months. There is discrimination in hiring even now. So that will, you know, exacerbate that situation. So we have to be careful when addressing issues. Also, it has to be, you know, research oriented. You have already mentioned that, you know, having conducive policies, having the laws, that, you know, the system is not enough, because as you know, Ethiopia, it's one of, you know, the good countries when it comes to policies that put, you know, women's rights in the forefront, including, you know, the international conventions and, you know, even the constitution, the labor law. It recognized, you know, differential needs, and, you know, but there is lack of enforcement. There is lack of, you know, going further behind and see. For instance, mostly the laws are being changed, or, you know, when the government is, you know, lobbied, or, you know, some parties are, you know, bringing that some gaps to the attention of, you know, the parliamentarians, or, you know, the policymakers. But it shouldn't be like that. As you have mentioned, it's not enough to have that opportunities. I remember, you know, working for Women Lawyers Association. There were women being fired from organizations because they are pregnant. Even government organizations, some of them, because they gave birth, like. But the law clearly says that, you know, you can't fire a woman after 6 months, you know, because some organizations that use that opportunity to, you know, to not to have, you know, the burden of child care or something, which is, you know, should be the society's, you know, a burden, not a woman's burden, because she's raising the next generation. So, yeah, and we need to be research oriented and also practical when it comes to policies. Another example I may mention is, you know, the land law. We used to have the land policy. I used to work with the USAID's land policy, land administration project. So in that project, one of the policies, you know, amended, of course, together with the Ministry of Agriculture and other stakeholders, was, you know, the law used to say that, you know, for a woman to inherit her father's or her parents' land, she has to live with them. For the men, because they stay on the land, but for the woman, she marries and leave, you know, left for her, you know, her husband's family. So that used to, you know, make women, you know, totally exclude from, you know, the land right. But it has to be lobbied upon, and also having a woman in that policy making process would have, you know, also have helped from, you know, having such gender blind policy. So, yeah. So I think, you know, we need to be practical. We need to incorporate, you know, real life experiences of women That's why we want more women in politics, more women in the boards, more women in decision-making positions.
Okay, Bethelhem, thank you for that. Is there something you'd like to add, Lydia?
Yeah. So organizations are not some kind of entity that by themselves. They always have people in them. So it's the mindsets that we're working. So we can have all the perfect policies on paper, but if the mindset is not in the right place, it's not going to be practical. So in all the rooms, like Betty said, in all the rooms that we make decisions, we need diversity. So that we can have different perspectives on the table. It would make us make the right choices in life, I believe.
So you said something about working on the mindsets and having more diversity. So I'm going to talk about the mindsets of young women and girls in Ethiopia now. And so the Association of Women in Boldness works on that. So I want to know what AWiB's role is in that.
Okay, AWiB is first and foremost, it's a network working platform, mostly for women, but also for others, for men as well. But what we do here is we give space for women to connect and raise different topics, and it's a safe space where they can talk, and we invite different experts to facilitate workshops, seminars on different topics like emotional intelligence, the brain wiring of men and women. These are some of the topics that we raise on weekend activities. We have like 60 weekend activities per year. These weekend activities are like the souls of AWiB because they are intimate conversations. Like the women take off their masks and be authentic. So this helps them to gain confidence. So they go back to their workspace and their families, and their voices are much clearer. Their minds are much clearer because they're letting go of all the burden they've been carrying. That's what we need. We need to discuss sensitive topics, sensitive issues, so that we would understand and dismantle what they're made of, so that we can find solutions to them. So AWiB is mostly about that, and we work on personal and professional development of women. Our vision is for Ethiopian women leaders to be a space where Ethiopian women leaders can connect, emerge, and grow together.
Very good. Is there anything you'd like to add, Bethelhem, on AWiB's work?
So you've mentioned about celebrating Women's Day, and Lydia have been saying that every day we need to work to develop women. So throughout the year, she has mentioned AWiB has different activities, including the weekend ones for members, and also such monthly events with different topics to have networking space for women, and also to invite men who have ideas and also who like to contribute to that. So it's a continuous work. It's not only one day or just International Women's Day. So we keep on developing leaders, women, through different programs, including being a board member also is part of developing women as well, to have to find their purpose, to contribute more where they are, so that they can work towards realizing their vision and be a productive member of society who can also contribute to development where they work, in their families, etc. So yeah.
Okay, so we've actually come to the end of this program, but I'd like for both of you to pass on a message towards, going towards the gender equal world that you both described, particularly in Ethiopia's case. I want you to, pass on your message on this Women's Day towards what we can do as women, as a society, and as Ethiopians in general towards achieving that. We've talked about policies, etc., but I'd like to hear, Bethelhem's and Lydia's message on it.
My message would be like, it's not a cliche, but developing a woman is developing a society. A society cannot go forward leaving 50% of at least 50% of it, and without the participation of the women. So we need to do more, such as involving women in national platforms, such as the peace processes, because women are women can be also not victims, and they need to be part of the solution as well, because as I've mentioned, we need women's perspective as well, because women are also hurt. They need to be part of the policy making and also the recovery strategy, because they have been there. So we need to do more to involve them. As you have mentioned, there is GBV in conflict settings and also in displacement, in IDPs, etc. So we need to do more on that, and also working for women. It cannot only be left for women as well, because living and hurting lots of women while are shunned from working for, towards women's equality, gender equality. It also benefits the men, because there is a lot of burden on men, because women are left behind, women are not given the opportunity, men are required to do more because women are not supporting them there. So my message is to do more in every aspect, and also to work together with men. Thank you.
My message would be for all of us to have more empathy towards when we deal with each other, both men and women. Try to understand things try to put ourselves in the other person's shoes and understand what they're coming from. So understanding what they're coming from would help us resolve everything more peacefully. So that would be my message. So as AWiB, what we are trying to work on is this kind of mindset works, like developing our empathy, hearing different perspectives, like opening our hearts to new perspectives. So it would unleash our potentials. It's inevitable to unleash our potentials, I guess. So, yeah.
Thank you both very much for your messages, and maybe I should have said this at the beginning, but happy Women's Day to both of you, and thank you so much for giving us your time today. Thank you both.
Thank you very much.
And with that, today's special program comes to an end. We've discussed the International Women's Day, or March 8th. We've also looked at different versions of fight towards gender equality and what we need to do as a society in Ethiopia as well as internationally. I've talked to the representatives from Association of Women in Boldness, Lydia Johannes and Bethlehem Nagash. I was Kidan Abbaina leading you through the program. Goodbye for now.